Welcome, Cyclone fans, to the latest edition of the Nightcap. I am your host and child producer, Aiden Wyatt, joined by Levi Stevenson and Matthias Schwarzkopf. Guys, how we doing?
What happens when you're like no longer a child? Like, how do we adapt that name
I mean, he technically is no longer a
title?
child, but like it'll be the joke will age extremely well whenever Aiden grows up and has a family and all that good stuff, whatever.
Yeah, but what do we do for that middle ground? I mean, fingers crossed. I got a long ways till that happens. So
Yeah, I don't know.
We talked about jinxes earlier before we hopped on. You just jinx it. You're fucked. You're getting like you're gonna end up in some kind of cult and get married.
I'm
in, like,
dying
a
at the
year.
fact that Matthias's that the rain cover on Matthias's golf bag is.
I'm glad you said it's a rain cover on the golf bag and not something else, like a hooded person and like.
Yeah, there's a
kidnapped or-
hostage in Matthias. Matthias is taking a hostage.
that's Tom Manning.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, all signs would point to that being true.
Yeah, if we take one look at your Twitter.
Yeah, Matthias, prove that it's not him.
It took a lot of work to tie him up, so
Actually, I would put my money on it being Tom Manning's burner rather than Tom Manning
yeah,
himself.
no kidding. Yeah.
actually, I think I like him a lot more than the actual Tom Manning right now.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. But yeah. So
There was a time where I hated Julian Good Jones a lot, but now I think I'm starting to develop
Don't
a
you
hatred
mean
for someone else.
Julian
Good
Bad
Julian
Jones.
Good Julian Bad Jones. Sorry. Yes.
Matthias will release
See,
Tom Manning hit the shell crossers. Yeah.
sad part is they're never going to be
Yeah, I was
released.
gonna say the problem is they're never gonna be released. So it's just kind of what it is, I guess.
You notice, like, after we started stretching the field against Kansas State, right? Like, so like we had that first quarter where like the playbook was seemingly open a little bit, right? Routes were being ran, passes were being chucked more than 10 yards down the field. And then
That's
Kansas
football, baby.
State still had 8 people or 9, maybe sometimes 10 kind of stacked in the 10-yard range. They're like, we still do not believe after this quarter you're going to throw more than 10 yards.
Sure
And then
as
we
shit.
didn't.
They were right. They were right. They called our bluff real good. We're like, oh, we're a vertical team now. And then there's like,
I was sitting some next to like some I don't know, I'm gonna guess he just got out of college, but he was pretty lit up in the stands, and then he was still still down in fireball inside the stands, and he was like, I don't know if he wasn't seeing the correct number of people out there, but he's like, we only got 6 in the box right now on Kansas State. We need to throw the unders and run those shallow crossers. I'm like, okay, dude, there's like 9 dudes standing in front of like the line of scrimmage right now. Like, you might want to cut off the booze right now.
I was gonna say you should do less alcohol. Like, it's one of
They didn't even change it at all. The same defense the entire time. They're like, yeah, we're right here, 10 yards. Maybe sometimes the safeties, they had like the 2 high safeties that would stretch
Right.
back to maybe like 15 yards. But like rest of the time they were up, and it's just like it was there. It's like you just run Demetrius Stanley deep once and like make them believe you can do it. And they never did it. Never did it.
What was interesting about last week is that as you go back and kind of rewatch it, there's still some like extremely like what the hell play calling and scheming, but upon rewatch has become more and more obvious that this issue goes far beyond, like it goes beyond Tom Manning. Like, it's not just him. It's not like everybody else is playing perfect and it's just just shit play calls. Because there was plenty of times where the right play was called, or it was a good play call, and Hunter Deckers or somebody made a terrible play. Like, I'm thinking in the second quarter, it's 3rd and 2, but it's probably about halfway through second quarter, eight and a half minutes left. 3rd and 2, they drop back to pass. O-line does a really nice job, actually. They do a really good job giving Hunter plenty of time. Deshaun Hanika runs he runs a corner route, basically. It's kind of an odd. It's kind of like an inverted seam route. So instead of into the seam, it's kind of out. It's kind of an odd route. It's not really like, there's not really a name for it, but gets open. Jalen runs a hitch past the sticks, whatever, and then Hunter also eventually, like, you can see there's room to run to pick up the first down. But what does he do? Throws it 5 yards backwards to Darrell Brock in the flat. for no discernible reason, despite having two receivers open beyond the first down marker, one about 15 yards beyond the first down marker, and then Jalen Noel about 2 yards beyond it on just sitting on a hitch route. Or he could have pulled it down, and he chose to do neither of those three options, and instead chose to do the worst option, which was a 5-yard loss on a dump out to the running back. Which, if you watch the play, it's he went out of his way to do that. Like, he was already kind of motioning towards the hole in the line where he could have just run. Instead it turns almost all the way a full 90 degrees around to throw it to Darrell Brock. And it's like, so what's going on there? Because the play call is fine. Two guys got open, and he had room to run. There was plenty of the receivers open beyond the sticks, and they were in good spots. Play call is fine, but Hunter did not process information properly at all. The risk assessment on that play was poor. And so the question is it Hunter, or is it a lack of coaching or improper coaching? And that's where it's that's what was kind of exposed last weekend, is it's not just Tom Manning. Like, his pocket presence isn't great right now. He's just not seeing the field, and he's hyper focusing on X. And last game, I want to say he had 34 pass attempts, somewhere in that.
It's all young quarterback mistakes, right?
Well, sort of. I'm going to push back on that just a little bit, because young quarterbacks are also typically a little eager. They're a little quick to run.
Not necessarily.
Pull it down and run. And most are, though. Like, it's a rare occurrence where you have to be like, what the hell, pull it down and run.
So the X stuff, why is he focused on X? Well, he knows the guy is gonna make a play for him, and he trusts him. So you go to the guy you're trusted. That's young quarterback. 2, the happy feet, bad feet footwork that we're saying is a guy that obviously, one, you've already mentioned it, is not being a coaching problem,
yeah.
Right? So there's signs of that to be room for growth in that. And then the pocket awareness, right? So we see guys in the NFL that are young. Obviously the game is different when you move up levels. So obviously Hunter is not like a prototypical first-year quarterback. He's been in the system for 2 years, obviously sat behind Brock Purdy. He's played in some games, but it hasn't been to where he's playing at the level of all Big 12 defensive ends coming at him for Kansas State, or
right. It's been mostly garbage time.
The first team defenses in Iowa. Obviously, he played against a good chunk of time against Iowa last year, but Iowa might have not been throwing the house at him like they were against Brock Purdy.
They had taken their foot off the gas.
So it is little bit of different stuff that he's seeing from that standpoint. So that's gonna get better over time. Like, he's gonna get that sense when a guy's gonna come around that tackle, and he's gonna know when he needs to take off. Now, there's been some chatter people have been talking about, and this is just fan chatter, right? This is just guys like, well, would the coaches tell him not to run? Obviously, no, they would not tell him to run if there is anything to that would be the silliest thing a coach could ever say, is to hey, if everything breaks down, you don't have nobody open, protection breakdown, don't run, take the sack. It's just, he has no pocket presence built up. He doesn't have the feel yet.
Never run, but are they?
Yeah.
Are they so scramble averse in an effort to protect Hunter? Have they beat it into his head so hard just get rid of it, or dump it off? Like scrambling should be your last option type.
But see, he doesn't do that either. He doesn't dump it off or get rid of it. So it's just that he doesn't.
Well, sometimes he does. Sometimes he does it way too fast, and then sometimes he just doesn't at all.
But I think it's not. I think it's just more so he just hasn't developed that pocket awareness yet. And
but the
hopefully
frustrating
gonna
part
come.
is, if you watch the first couple weeks, he looks smooth standing in the pocket, especially against Southeast Missouri and Iowa and stuff like that. He looked pretty good standing in the pocket, especially against Iowa's pass rush or whatever. He looked pretty comfortable. It looked like he knew what he was doing. He was making his reads and whatever and going through it. And then the last few games, seems like it's gone backwards.
Everything's gone backwards in the last.
Well, everything's gone backwards, but if you watch his footwork from the first couple games, he's standing confident in the pocket and he's throwing with good mechanics. And now he's just running around he's stepping up in the pocket, and then instead of setting his feet, he's basically throwing jump passes and stuff like that. And that's why a bunch of them are short, or they're they're inaccurate or whatever it is, or whatever. And so there's some level of panic involved here that he's not processing very well. Like he's just not sensing pressure. He sometimes he senses pressure where there's none, and there's times where he doesn't sense pressure at all. And going through like last game, I thought the offensive line was actually pretty good in pass protection for the most part.
Yeah.
And run blocking was acceptable. It wasn't amazing, but it was acceptable. And so, I mean, it's not the offensive line's fault that Hunter's taking weird sacks or that he's getting uncomfortable. I mean, they're doing a pretty good job of getting him a pocket.
In the grand scheme of the whole year, like the sacks being taken, it's probably a good 50-50 split of Hunter and the offensive line issues. Maybe not so much against Kansas State, but in grand scheme of the whole year.
Maybe early on, but I think the offensive line seems to be starting to gel a little bit. They got a ways to go, but they're starting to make some baby steps forward. Hunter is taking baby steps backwards, and it's why like I'm curious to see what it looks like this weekend. Because Texas is a middle of the road defense. They're not as good. Like their defense is not as good as Baylor or as Kansas State. They're better than Kansas, not as good as Baylor or Kansas State.
Kansas State was still pretty in terms of statistics, middle of the road defense.
Were they? Okay. I mean, they've got more defensive like threats, I guess. Like they have a couple defensive ends that are better than anybody that's on Texas's defense.
Let's check it out.
I'm
just curious.
But really, so like as far as this weekend, I don't really have a lot of expectations for this weekend. Texas is playing really well. I think Iowa State's defense will hold them down. I mean, we'll talk more about the game, but what I'm like where I'm going with this is like I'm not as concerned about seeing a bunch of progression this weekend, but really to me, next week, the bye week, is critical. Like if we come out of the bye week when guys are more healthy, theoretically you got Jairo and Cartavius Norton back after the bye week. You've got those guys back. You've had a chance to really assess the situation on offense and make adjustments. If after that the offense still looks extremely confused and disorganized and timid, then that to me is where you can really like shoot up the flare and say, "Holy shit, this thing's fucked." Like
because we haven't been doing that already.
What?
Saying, "Holy shit, this is fucked."
Well,
through 6 games.
We have, but you can more justifiably do that. After the bye. Like,
I think
I would
to
argue
your point too.
Most of the people were like up to this point has been doing it maybe a little prematurely.
Yeah, I agree. If you hear Matt Campbell talk, he just keeps mentioning that every single person is just a hair off. And I think if you can fine tune that during the bye week, maybe we could flip a switch and rip off, 5 games left?
If truly
4 out of 5 or something
truly everybody
like that,
is just a hair off, then that should be theoretically something you can fix on a bye week.
Yeah, exactly. And he's been saying that for at least 3 weeks now.
It's a lot of hairs, Matt. Like
so that's a lot of hairs.
It's a lot of hairs.
But yeah, I think that's
some are more hairs
huge,
off than others, I think.
Right, yeah. But I mean, we mentioned all these plays that are going the wrong way. It's like, well, Jalen Noel might have been open and he throws it to Jairo Brock. Or someone's open, offensive line doesn't have as good of a play as they did maybe the previous play, and then
it's just not lining
there's
up.
just something is just off. And if they can't
here's another thing that I I'm curious, and this goes back into our coaching and play calling, but situational play calling. But you talk about a young quarterback that's struggling a little bit. You want to get him easy completions and things like that, and that's probably in theory what the crosser routes are for. But obviously, in the time frame that those get used are not appropriate. But one thing I want to go back to is I believe the second half they rolled Hunter Decker out. Hunter Decker's out to the left side, right? So when you roll somebody out, you're cutting the field in half. You're going to make reads easier because they're looking at one half of the field and they got maybe 2-3 options if they're going to go through 1, 2, 3, and they're probably in levels. Well, Hunter hit the easy one at the first level. It went for like a 10-yard gain, got a first down. and that was an in rhythm play. And then they never went back to it again. They never rolled them out again. They never did anything like that again. I think that's part of my thing is where I harp on Tom Manning on Twitter and things like that is when, and this goes back to, Aiden and I's Bears fandom with, Matt Nagy. It's like, it's almost
Fire
like
Nagy, by the way.
freaking deja vu, dude. It's like you do the easy things once and then you completely scrap it completely and you never do it again. And then everything just goes south after you did that. It's like,
Well, you mentioned
why?
rhythm there. I mean, like that. This offense has never felt like it was in a rhythm.
That's because they do something good, they get a rhythm, or they find
They
something
get a
that
big
could
play,
be.
and the first thing to do is run inside zone for 2 yards.
Yes, so then they
You just
they
burn
do
first
they go
down.
back, they go right back to their tendencies that the defense is already expecting them to do after they went off the tendency to get a big splash play, if you will, and get some momentum going, and then they stop doing it. Like, and let's look at like the Demetri Stanley 2 deep passes that we had against Baylor and Kansas, right? Those were chunk plays. They led to scoring drives right away. After that, they never did anything like that again. They never utilized that to get a spark or anything like that. We didn't even see it against Kansas State. It's ridiculous.
And it's one of those things too where they've been running basically the same offense since 2019, basically.
Yes.
It hasn't really changed much at all. And I understand the whole we're going to do this thing and then eventually we're going to go against tendency to try to catch them off guard or whatever that is. Tendencies have been established for a few years now. They're like everything is so predictable right now, and like a lot of fans can sit in the stands right now and see Jalen Knoll coming in on a jet motion, and Russ is sitting there at an H-back. Or Russ starts out wide and then comes back in towards the H-back spot, and then they snap it right away. That's an inside zone every time. Most fans, or a lot of fans that have been, if they've been paying attention and kind of rewatching some stuff or whatever, most of them can watch what's happening and have a pretty decent guess as to what's going on. And they're watching broadcast film on their free time like once. They're not a college football team watching the All-22 for hours and hours and hours again. I mean, if we think we know a lot, opposing defenses know everything. And that's where it becomes is like at a certain point you got to do something different because everybody already knows what you're doing. It's just like it really is kind of like the defense where, I mean, now the defense this year is playing, I mean, they're unbelievable and the scheme has never been bad. It's always been a good scheme. It's always been a good defense. But teams have been able to find some holes in the defensive scheme. I mean, every defensive scheme on earth has holes in it that you can attack. They found it, and now we do things to adjust and to cover up those holes and to try to break tendencies. But the offense isn't doing that. They like everybody figured it out, and we said we're just going to keep trying it. We're just going to keep trying to beat you in the face with this, and it's just not working.
Yeah, so
reminding you about all these holes reminds me of Matthias's mother.
Yeah. Well, my way to combat that, I'm not going to say it live on the air. So you got me on this one. Well played. The student has become the teacher.
Thank you.
Dude, I gave Aiden a lesson in mom jokes on Saturday. I popped off like 40 in a row, like bam, 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 and he just took it to heart.
Well, the thing was, it was about your own mom.
Who also took it bam, bam, bam.
Wabinga.
Anyways.
Texas defense.
I know they're mostly like middle of the road, like in opponent's yards per play and all that.
So they allow 3.4 yards per rush. That's 23rd best in the country. 5.7 yards per pass. That's 9th best in the country. So they're pretty decent at stopping both.
Is that adjusted for opponent or is that just raw?
That's current through today. So it's not like adjusted like.
It's not adjusted for the quality of the opponent they're playing. The reason I said that is because Pick Six Previews does opponent adjusted yards per play. So that takes into account like who you've played.
And they've played
And-
poverty schools like Alabama so far this
and,
year.
Texas is sitting like middle of the road. Let's see if I can-
Yeah, but I feel like that's fine and on dandy and all, but like if you're ninth in giving up yards and pass, like that's still ninth in the country at doing something that's pretty damn good. I don't care who you played or haven't played. Like you're doing things right to get to that point. So there is still a formidable challenge there for the Iowa State offense that is struggling to go up against.
Just trying to find. There we go. Top defenses for week 6. Opponent adjusted yards per play. 1 is Alabama. 2 is Iowa. 3 is Iowa State. 4 is Texas. Never mind. So Texas's defense has played well so far. Literally right behind.
And they
Iowa
played
State.
really well against Alabama, which
Yeah.
is not a real slouch.
Right. It's Alabama. Yeah.
I mean, they're mediocre at best. Let's get it right here, but they're no UTSA running rebels or whatever were the Roadrunners
Roadrunners. Yeah.
running rebels. Why did I think UNLV can suck my nuts?
Sounds like they're in your. Sounds like they live rent free in your head, bud.
Anybody heard much on UNLV Rebel Girl lately? She has me blocked.
No idea.
No, yeah, I don't know.
Hmm.
Probably
Must
tweets about you a lot.
I mean, if I was her, I'd tweet about me too.
But you know what? As shitty as things are, at least we're not Iowa, who is currently being
See,
held,
that's the thing.
who is currently being
Okay.
held hostage by Kirk and Brian Ferentz.
Yeah, this seems to get more wild as the season goes on.
There was 2 different things that happened today.
Yeah, should we?
PR wise,
down
they
here?
are.
So the first
PR
one,
wise, it's good thing we're not them. Yes.
what was that? Yeah. That's really it's bad right now. It feels bad for us, but it's not actually bad like it is for
Like
Iowa.
football wise, like in terms of like our football product that's being placed on the field is literally the exact same thing.
Yeah,
Right.
which
But
does
they-
But
suck.
PR wise,
But, yeah.
But
Yeah.
PR wise, we're here and I was way down.
which
here.
at this point seems like more important. Anyways, go on.
what seems more important?
Having good PR.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what we're that's like how many Cyhawk series points do we get for having better PR than Iowa?
All of them.
Like, so the first one that came out was by the people that are suing Brian and Kirk Ferentz for the allegations of all that for a couple of summers. Do we have predictions over here?
For
Matthias?
what?
From the baby.
Does she have a prediction?
Did she,
Yeah,
did she
what does she have for this weekend?
Does she have anything to weigh in on versus the Brian Ferentz saga? Or no?
Horns.
Yeah,
horns
ask her what
down.
she thinks of Brian Ferentz.
What do you think of Brian Ferentz? Can you say Hawkeye stink? Yes.
Is that a Hawkeye baby?
Oh no, that's a
Hawkeye baby.
Hawkeye baby.
She hates the Hawkeyes.
Doesn't seem like it.
Come on, say it. You're embarrassing me.
She's like, yeah, I am embarrassing you.
She'll probably start running away and she'll say it. Cat's got her tongue. All right.
Anyways, so the lawsuit that's going on with the former Iowa players and the Ferentz or whatever, apparently Kirk and Brian have been dodging it and just refused to show up for their sworn depositions. Which isn't great.
I'm no legal expert, but you can't do that, right?
No, you
I
can't.
mean-
You can't do that. No. They like the funny thing is that they asked for a delay last fall until the end of the season, and here we are in the middle of the next football season, and they're still asking for a delay.
Mhm.
Pushing it up. It's like everybody has given a sworn deposition, including Gary Barta,
Including
But-
Chris Doyle.
including Chris Doyle and Gary Barta have given sworn depositions, but the Ferentz people have not done that and are basically dodging this. I think at this
Doyle
point.
doesn't have much to do, so he's got plenty of
Well,
time.
that's true. That's true. So you have that, and then a separate deal is they had their media days today, and it did not go well for Brian Ferentz. I want to see if I could pull up that quote that from
Find the Keith Murphy had the video posted on
Oh, did he?
on his Twitter, I believe. No, it might have been on Facebook.
Because there was a couple. Well, there was a couple different ones. One of the questions was like,
Are you talking about the Padilla one?
well, no, I was thinking there was a different one. So the Padilla one was, did someone say what could it hurt giving Alex? Like,
What-
what's the
What's the downside? Yeah.
What's the downside of giving Alex Padilla a try? And he says, well, what's the upside? And then it immediately goes to like show Spencer Petras his QBR, which is like 4.
I
But
do feel bad for Petrus at this point.
I do too. I do.
I'll
too.
be honest. Did you see his post game interview from the other night? He was like tearing up.
Oh yeah, no, I feel bad for him because he's in
kinda
a shit
sad.
offensive system with a
Yeah.
shit coach.
Right.
Like I mean, what's like what level of success can you reasonably expect out of this? But the other one, which I think was actually funnier, like that one, the first one was just like, wow, you're an idiot. The second one is funny because it's just a tremendous like either it's a tremendous lack of self-awareness or he like this whole thing's a joke to him. Let me see if I can find it. There it says. So Ferentz deferred to the head coach when asked if his job evaluation has been influenced because Kirk's his son. So someone asked, like, has your job evaluation been skewed a little bit because Kirk is your father? He said, you'll have to talk to the head coach, his dad. like if someone's if asking you if nepotism is involved here and you say, I don't know, talk to my dad. That is the worst answer you could have given in that situation.
This season has been kind of interesting in terms of the whole nepotism thing because I feel as if maybe teams that see Iowa at least once a year recognize what's happening, but now it's kind of gotten to the national scale of this is beyond a nepotism problem. Like, what are we doing here?
My thing is, how do you have a anti-nepotism like rule with your university and still have it?
Iowa has an anti-nepotism thing.
Yes.
Do they really? Oh, I have no idea.
That's why Gary Barta is technically Brian Ferentz's
dad
supervisor.
Oh, he adopted Brian Ferentz.
Yeah, well, probably at this point. Yeah, so
That's
here,
how you get around it.
Let me. I don't know the actual language on it, but they call it the. Where is it?
I have the whole.
Yeah, so he has anti-nepotism policies, which I'm sure maybe Iowa State does too. But
I'm sure Iowa State does.
I'm
too,
sure
but
every
also-
school in the country does.
But Matt Campbell, but Rudy Campbell isn't calling plays for the offense. Like
I wish he was.
I didn't swear it yet. I did say I kind of set that up on a T4 an accident, but like. But the funny thing is as just a giant pile of shit as that whole situation is with how bad that team, like that offense is, and the nepotism stuff and the lawsuit stuff, none of it matters because Iowa can't afford to fire Kirk. And
what is his buyout?
it's something like 40. It's in the 40 millions. Last I remember, maybe it was last year, but like I think as of last year, anyways, his buyout was like $48 million. It was something silly.
I bet they could work around it.
So
Maybe,
I
but
think
if Kirk doesn't want to leave and all of a sudden now there's bad blood between Iowa and Kirk, he's not going to take a lower buyout.
Maybe conspiracy theory. Maybe all this racism stuff is a conspiracy theory to get him fired, so they don't have to pay the buyout.
And then there's a counter conspiracy is that Kirk refuses to fire Brian because then he'll lose then Brian will lose his excuse to not give his sworn deposition, which maybe Kirk thinks is going to tank the whole thing.
Oh, well, if Brian Ferentz
What a
was my
tangled
son,
web we weave.
and yeah. So, as of July 5th, 2022, if they fired him, they would owe him $48 million.
That's so much money.
That's a lot of money.
That is so much money. Like I don't know what like Nick Saban's buyout is, but it's not that.
Oh, here's a fun article.
Or
Big
what's-
Ten football coach contracts ranked by absurdity.
You
I
share.
feel like I know whose it is. Now, granted, so the only one I've heard of that's bigger is Jimbo Fisher, because
His is like 90 million.
well, it's a $95 million contract that was signed last September, And I think it's fully guaranteed. So like,
Would you
they
guys,
have to buy him out like $80 million at this point?
Would you guys like to guess who number 2 is on this list before
Scott
we get
Frost.
to number 1?
In the rank, when was this list made?
This was made in July, I think.
So
Scott Frost or Mel Tucker.
So Scott Frost or Mel Tucker would be up
Yeah,
there. PJ,
it was-
PJ Fleck too.
Mel Tucker is number 2. PJ Fleck, I don't know where he was at. Scott Frost at 5. PJ Fleck is at 10th.
Does Jeff Brown make a bunch of money? Like,
No, I don't think he does.
no, I don't think so. Yeah,
So Kirk Ferentz is ranked number 1 in this article.
yeah, I mean,
Yep.
it's got to be. Yeah, makes way
Jeff
too
Brown was
much money
9th.
in his buyout. Wait, who's number 3?
James Franklin.
Interesting.
He is guaranteed $7 million each year out of a $7.5 million salary.
Okay,
So
he could be up in the 35 million range.
so basically his 10-year $75 million deal
They just take
is $70 million
right,
guaranteed,
right.
which is
What
where
if
the
they just
absurdity
fired
comes in.
Kirk, paid the $48 million, but like spread it out over the next 10
They do like a Bobby Bonilla.
They do like a like a payment plan.
Yeah.
And then Iowa fans can celebrate Kirk Ferentz Day every July 3rd or some
Right,
shit like
yeah.
that. Yeah.
That way, like they could supplement like donor money to pay this off, like that way.
The funny thing is, like, if they did that, like they would basically have to hire someone within. They'd have to because they couldn't afford to get anybody else.
I'm continuing to read this article. Sorry to interrupt, but so this was written in July, and under the Kirk Ferentz section, it says Ferentz is a successful coach. Yes, he also hasn't won a Big Ten title since 2004. Employs his son as a flagrantly inept offensive coordinator and would have been fired with cause years ago at many other programs.
Oh yeah.
What a
Ferentz's
what a mess
agent,
that whole
Neil
thing is.
Kornreich, I don't know how you say that, has been as opportunistic as Iowa athletic director Gary Barta has been incompetent. If the Iowa guys stop fielding kick-ass defenses anytime soon, they'll be stuck with a miserable team for several years.
Yeah.
This is like, I don't know who wrote this article, but
What site is it on?
the bucket problem. Never even heard of it.
I'm telling you. So let's just say that. So the Chris Doyle firing, right? It's caught up with the offensive line, like in the offensive scheme. Like it's
So
soft.
bad. So
So-
bad. Yeah.
Does it catch up with the defense? It very well could.
I actually did see it in this little Twitter thread from Pick Six Previews. I was looking at is that Iowa has their offensive line has been like one of the worst in college football up to this point.
That's kind of been the one thing that has been good on their offense. That's made the difference, even when their offense has been
Yeah.
bad.
Worst pass
And they at least
protection.
have that,
Iowa
but-
has the second worst sack rate allowed in the entire country.
Just out of curiosity, where are we at on that list?
We are not on that list.
Sick.
Praise Jesus.
So 4, 5, 6. We're not in the top 10 of worst pass protection units. So that's
as well be.
that's good.
I didn't even read the last sentence of the article, which says he'll probably be there in 2029, stoic as ever. Watching the Hawkeyes improve to 9-3 with an 11-5 win over UCLA
Yep.
should be a storybook ending.
and then he's gonna get a 10-year extension.
Yep.
And that's the funniest part of all this is that like they can't afford to get rid of him. They desperately need to. They desperately need to get rid of Kirk and Brian because Kirk ain't getting rid of Brian.
It's gotten to the point where it's causing issues off the field
Oh yeah,
with this whole racism debacle thing.
yeah. Now
Seems
it's
like they welcome that though.
now
To
we're-
be honest, I didn't even
bordering on-
realize was still going on.
that whole thing is now bordering on obstruction of justice because it's gotten so
Yeah.
far out of hand.
But the thing is,
Right.
like these articles like this, and like information keeps popping up of this thing, and they continue to do nothing about it. Like I don't think the guy's touchable. He's never gonna get fired. He's gonna be there till 2029. They both are. And that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And I feel
Yep.
bad for the good Hawkeye fans that had to do that, but
Oh, I don't.
I mean, we all know some good Hawkeye people that.
I know. I mean, I know a couple, but I don't feel. I don't feel bad for them because their football team suck. Like,
Well, it's not because their football team sucks. It's because
Yeah, it's just
leadership
most
that they
like-
have there
Yeah, they
is
gotta sit through a bunch of
not
garbage
good.
people.
Yeah.
yeah, that's true. And today, that was another episode in today's, and at least we're not Iowa.
Yeah. Yeah. At least we don't have Brian.
At least we don't have Brian Ferentz. That's like gonna be like a recurring segment every week now as well. At least we're not Iowa.
Yeah.
Because there's always just something stupid that happens every week that they do. And you're
They
like,
have to be one of the worst. Excuse me. The worst at handling media. It is unbelievable how often we have these little sound bites.
they're horrendous.
I think it was Kirk Ferentz this week when he went off on some reporter when they asked about Brian Ferentz and are you aware that we won 10 games? Chris Hassel had a really, really good take about it being like, what the hell does that have to do with anything?
It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. So not only is Kirk Ferentz getting older, he's getting senile and is forgetting what's going on.
Kind of cocky. And it's
Yeah.
like, it's like
Six games into the following year, he's bringing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of like he's turning into a Nebraska fan that coaches Iowa. Like, well, did you see what we did in '99?
Yeah.
I mean, like watching Iowa this season has been watching a 23-car pileup at Talladega on the last lap or something like that. Like it's just a whole train wreck. You hope nobody's getting hurt, but damn, is it fun to watch? Like, I just
Rest in
can't.
peace, Dale Earnhardt.
That was Daytona, but
Point stands.
Either way, do it for Dale.
Yep. Do it for Dale.
do it for Dale. Yeah. So, anyways, do we give a short preview on the Texas game or go straight to betting? I don't know.
predictions.
Preview is check out our this is the most impressive game preview that we have ever written in the site coming up on Friday.
Easily the most comprehensive.
Yep. So check that out on Friday, and away we would go. But let's go to some betting.
Yeah, let's go do it.
Well, I think we gotta get some game picks in first.
Oh, sure.
of
course.
What did I
So-
say? I'm trying to remember.
You can find mine on Friday.
I decided to be a tremendous dumbass on down the pipe, and I predicted 14-10 Cyclones.
Jesus.
Or a dumbass.
Just the dumbest boy in school.
Just the dumbest boy in school. I explained to Mark. I was like, I picked against Iowa. I picked K-State to win last week, and I won, and it didn't feel good. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna pick Iowa State to win in the dumbest game possible, and then I'm gonna feel great about it when we do. And if I'm wrong, whatever. No expectations.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember my pick from last week. Picked Iowa State to win 9-8. So wasn't too far off. Might be back. We'll see. And I also think it's lame to pick the other team to win because I'm always going to pick Iowa State to win. So
I'm
we're going
just
to
giving my
go.
honest opinion.
This is such a homer podcast.
Yep. Yeah. Well, if I was
picked Kansas State in the preview too, you dingus.
I did what?
I'm pretty sure you picked Kansas State in your preview.
Yeah, because I'm not a homer.
Yeah, well, I choose to be a homer. If I want to be realistic, I'd say like 27-10 Texas, but I don't want to be. So I'm going to say 16-9 Iowa State.
14-10 Clones. That's a whole 2 offensive touchdowns.
The Bears.
It's not a thing. Actually,
All right.
no,
Yeah,
it's 4
thing.
field goals. It's 4 field goals and a safety. 14-11.
Elite.
Tyrese Hunter sucks.
That's an Iowa W right there. We got Cubs corner. All right, season down bad.
What's your
It's a bit
record?
of a rough patch. It's like
What
8
is your
and 16, I think. Does that up to 24? Yeah.
You're still hanging in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, last week was, I think, the best week I've had all year, but
Didn't matter in the end.
It's not great. It's not great.
So this week, I don't even know
How
if
am
I
I
need to
still,
explain
how am
my
I
picks,
still
'cause-
leading this? Is
'cause you had
the
one
question.
4-0 week, I think, to start, and then it
Really?
just,
Oh, yeah, I did.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
just haven't been able to catch you. But give it time. Give it time. All right.
I
My
know.
first pick. I can't believe that Baylor was only 3.5-point favorites over West Virginia. West Virginia is not good.
Right. Yeah.
And clearly Baylor doing something right down there. So I'm taking
This
them
is
to
a lot
cover
of
3.5
Big 12 on here.
in Morgantown. Yeah, you can sense a theme here. And then
You're
I'm taking Kansas on the road.
money
Yeah,
line.
yeah. I
That's
know,
gutsy.
I know. I think the Jalen Daniels revenge tour has started since they announced that he was out for
Playing.
season, and then he said, "That's news to me." So revenge tour has started for Jalen Daniels. And then
But he's
my
not playing
last pick,
Saturday.
is he out? I don't even know, but
I think he's.
I don't
gonna
think
be
they've
out.
announced anything, have they?
He's dead.
He's dead.
He was in a video yesterday, so
No, he's dead.
doing a really good
He's,
weekend.
all right,
There.
confirmed dead. Credit Matthias Schwarzkopf.
That's right there. That's the kind of inside information that you can only get here on the nightcap.
Yep.
Jalen
I was in
Daniels
Lawrence
is indeed
earlier
dead.
today.
Yeah.
Yep. All right,
Saw
my
it with
last
3
pick.
eyes.
Anyways,
My last pick is TCU and Oklahoma State, taking the over at 68. Think that Oklahoma State, I'm going to be honest, kind of fun to watch. They're like the old Oklahoma State teams where they score 1,000 points. Their defense is like,
And
fuck it. I don't even care.
yeah, they're just like,
And
let's
that's where
get
we're
off the
at.
field so the offense can be back on the field.
Exactly. Yeah. Right.
Which one of ours?
Levi,
are
what you
taking?
got?
Which one of ours?
Oh,
are you
yeah.
taking?
I'm going to take Matthias's plus 16.5.
I'm gonna take Baylor. That feels like a really tight line. I'm not sure why, but it's Baylor on that one. That's in Norman,
Yep.
but Oklahoma's bad,
Oklahoma's defense is
horrendous.
horrendous. Yeah. Real bad.
he
real
may
bad.
not be that great either.
Is Dylan Gabriel playing?
That I do not know.
If Dylan Gabriel's playing, I'll probably take Oklahoma.
If I had to guess, he
General-
probably
did
is
General
since he was
Booty play
questionable
last
last week. No, they actually had 5 people throw a pass, and General Booty was not one of them.
Maybe
The
should
fuck?
use more specific booty.
More specific Booty.
So who you taking?
Is because it kind of depends on if Dylan Gabriel's playing. I will say
Jesus Christ.
no. I'm gonna take Oklahoma. I can't do it. I'm not. No. Oklahoma.
Were you
on
gonna
the
say
line.
you're not dumb? Is that what you're gonna say?
If Kansas wins this, do we say that they're legit?
No, because Oklahoma's terrible so
Oklahoma's
far. They've
defense
getting
is
over
really
1,000
bad.
yards of offense
Yeah.
the last 2 weeks.
But if Oklahoma wins, we're immediately gonna say Kansas is a fraud.
Yes. Because
You
they
know what
are.
I'm saying?
But it doesn't.
No.
It doesn't have. They both don't have to be true in that particular.
Well,
scenario.
in my mind, if you're legit, you beat the teams that you're supposed to beat.
Who's
Which,
supposed to
granted,
beat who?
betting odds here,
Yeah, but
Kansas
who's
isn't
supposed
supposed
to
to beat
beat
Oklahoma. But
Well, apparently
I
not,
mean-
because Kansas is a plus 265 on the money line, so apparently they're not supposed to be Oklahoma.
But with how bad Oklahoma is it that crazy to say that Kansas should beat Oklahoma?
I'm
So
saying
Oklahoma's real bad.
I don't think it's crazy that you say Kansas can beat Oklahoma.
Vegas is saying no.
I say Vegas is saying no though. I'm gonna.
Well,
I'm
I've
gonna
been
stick
riding with Vegas these last couple weeks, and
How's that been going for you, bud? Your
yeah,
season record
not
is so
good.
bad. You have it listed as down bad.
Yeah. Did you-
fade
you just
Naden. I'm
reiterated
fade-
my own
it's fade
point.
Naden season, baby.
No,
It's
you just
mid-October.
reiterated my own point. I said I was
It's-
riding with Vegas, and you said, "Yeah, how's that working out for you?" Which has been not good. So I'm going against Vegas.
Right, but that's right. But you're bad at betting, so I'm gonna.
Well, you just went with my point because I went with Vegas. I've been going with the favorites every week this year. I pick one underdog now.
Yep. and
If
you're
it
wrong.
works,
Nobody cares.
You're wrong. It's Oklahoma. And then did the over hit last week? I'm gonna say the over is not gonna hit. I'm gonna take the under on TCU Oklahoma State.
Communist.
And I'm also taking the under on Iowa State Texas because
yeah,
obviously
you suck.
because
You
obviously
suck.
there's no way in hell that there's gonna be enough points in this game to get to 50 points. No chance.
I'm gonna do these quicker because when you overthink it, it obviously doesn't work because you're 11-13 and you
I
overthink
know.
everything.
I'm bad
So
at this.
Baylor -3.5, Oklahoma over, and Iowa State plus 16.5 because that is a lot of points.
It is a lot of points, especially
Did you
with
catch all that, Aiden?
It's a really that's a lot of points with
yeah.
with two very good defenses on the field.
I mean, I'm not saying Iowa State won't lose by 14, but 16 and a half. I don't know.
Yeah.
And that's speed betting.
Everyone knows the best way to gamble is as fast as you can.
Yeah. Don't actually
Clearly.
think about it.
Clearly, it's worked 13 times.
You haven't been doing speed betting up to this point.
Sure, I have.
No, you haven't.
Sure.
I don't know. Kansas hung with TCU though. Yeah, I mean,
I
Kansas
feel
is
like
decent.
we're making all these points about like, well, they hung with TCU or they did this. It's like nobody knows what the Big 12 exactly is.
Yeah, so I don't think anybody knows who's good and who's not in the Big 12. Like the difference between the number 1 team and the last team is not that big.
I choose to believe that everyone's a fraud
That's
Okay.
probably honestly that's probably true.
because I think we're closer to that than everyone being legit.
I would agree with that. Because Texas could easily fall apart. They have a freshman quarterback. I mean, they could easily
Yeah.
fall apart.
I do think, though, we always make fun of Texas for being back, but this is definitely the best team that they've had
Oh, agreed.
since Matt
But
Campbell's been at Iowa
they're
State
still
anyway.
They're still hanging on to a
They still have to
freshman
prove it,
quarterback.
though. Yeah.
I mean, they still got to beat like a good team or
Yeah.
whatever.
That
And-
the whomping that they had over OU was semi-enjoyable, though.
oh yeah, that's sure. And like that was before the day started. That would have been a really impressive win. But then you watch how it happened. You're like, nope, Oklahoma's just bad.
Yeah, that jump pass that they called on like the 20-yard line.
Texas scored so many points that they delegitimized their own win. That's the problem. They made their own win less impressive because they won so handily.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everyone's a fraud. That's really the whole point.
Everyone's a fraud.
There's like 2 good teams in college football. And it's like Ohio State.
That's the
and
thing.
Georgia.
I think the entire universe of college football right now is fraudulent.
Yeah. I mean, Ohio State and Georgia are probably both pretty good. And other than that,
Yeah. I mean, Alabama.
I guess 3 teams. There's 3 good teams in college.
Yeah.
football. The rest are
They're just going to
the rest are
rotate
bad.
between the top 3 spots, which is what they've been doing so far this
Right.
season.
And they're all bad. So
Yep.
that's really the lesson to be had here is there are no, and if you look at the NFL too, there's like 1 good team in the NFL. And like it's like the Bills. The Eagles, I guess, are good. But like there's like 2 good teams in college. There's like 3 good teams in college football, and there's like 2 in the NFL. And the rest of the league is like fraudulent / mediocre.
Yep.
I'd be happy to call the Bears mediocre at this point, man.
And then there's the Bears and the Lions.
Hey, Bears didn't look half bad in second half there against the old
Yeah.
Minnesota.
The Bears need to start looking a lot less not half bad, otherwise they're going to play themselves out of the top pick.
We don't need a top pick though.
You need a high end pick though.
Meh.
Anyways,
See, you can get like top 15 draft pick and still probably get a really good player because some team is going to reach for Bryce Young and all them quarterbacks, like, Will Levis and all them. So there's still going to be a lot. Like
We should.
Bears got like 12 through 13 pick. They're still going to have a pick of a really good player.
Do you think that we could trade our first round pick to the Steelers
No,
for Mitchell
Don't even say
Trubisky
stop.
revenge tour?
Get out of here.
He was a Pro Bowler, man. What can I say?
He was a Pro Bowl alternate.
Is that a Pro Bowler or is that not a Pro
No,
Bowler?
that's just saying you suck enough that they think they
You
might
suck
let you go.
enough. We're gonna throw you a Pro Bowl. I don't think that's how that
The
works.
Pro Bowl is such a joke that they got rid of it and replaced it with flag football. Now get out. Of here.
Okay, well, then he's the Nickelodeon most valuable player. The accolades go on.
Also a joke. Stupid. Mickey Mouse MVP award.
How many do you have?
How many do you have?
None, but I'm not saying Mitch is bad. I'm celebrating
bad.
Mitch.
He's bad. He's so
You're
bad.
bad.
He's been benched twice.
you guys done? The Bears.
Aaron Rodgers sucks and he's a fraud.
Let's talk about the St. Louis Cardinals.
Well, just retired at least 2 Hall of Famers, maybe a third.
The
Probably not-
biggest
probably not
fraud
right, but
franchise in modern day sports, professional sports, is the Green Bay Packers. Frauds.
They're a fraud franchise?
Yes, frauds.
How are they frauds?
They think they're good, and they're not. They choke artists. They might as well go to Las Vegas and have their own show called The Choke. I'm saying, choke. I'm only saying this because David's sitting here watching
Aiden,
this.
get me out of this podcast.
Yeah, all right.
Robbie Gold, baby.
I need to pull the fucking parachute. Just
Robbie Gold.
Right. Any
Brett
last
Favre
takes
stole
to
a bunch of
fire
money
off?
from
Nope.
kids.
Yep. We're not getting into that one. We already dug into Brian Ferentz doing naughty
Brett
things
Favre
today.
hates
So.
children.
We're not doing this here.
All right.
Brett Favre.
Levi
My Peyton
Stevenson,
Man thing.
Matthias Schwarzkopf. I'm Aiden White. Go Cyclones.